Hello, friends. That was Finster. And this is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today we are graduating a recording from a however choice in the repertoire section to one of the greatest recordings ever, because it really is. And it's still around. I checked. It seems to still be available. And, if you don't have it yet, this is maybe your last chance. I don't know. It's this: the complete Beethoven symphonies arranged for piano by Franz Liszt and performed by Cyprien Katsaris. Oh my God, is this a great set? And it has been since it first came out on Teldec. In fact, this latest one seems to still be on Teldec. It says Teldec Classics. I don't know why it hasn't been Warnerized yet. It does say made in Germany by Warner Music. So maybe they didn't change the thingy. I don't know. But what I saw is that it's still around. It's not too expensive. It's 6 discs, all the Beethoven symphonies. And wow, is this stupendous, amazingly performed by Katsaris, who has since gone on to make something of a reputation for himself as a pianist who specializes in, among other things, transcriptions. I mean, one of his last, it's not available anymore, but it was amazing, was the complete opera, Don Giovanni, transcribed for piano by Bizet. And he recorded the whole thing. I mean, really kind of amazing. And he's a brilliant pianist. I mean, he's made some great Chopin records. He recorded for a while for Sony Classical, and of course initially for Teldec. And then he has his own label now. It's called Piano 21 or something like that. I don't know. It's his own label. He really ought to gather everything he's ever done and stuff it in a box, because it's such a unique discography. It really is. But the Liszt arrangements of the Beethoven symphonies are quite simply the best Beethoven arrangements out there. I mean, back in the day, before they had recordings in the 19th century, lots of people made arrangements of Beethoven symphonies. They were very popular and they sold, because the only way that you could hear these pieces was to play them at home. And so that they were created at varying levels of difficulty for everything from amateur pianists to great virtuosi. Now, Liszt's arrangements are the most complete in terms of their faithfulness to Beethoven's scores, and among the most difficult technically, because Liszt did not want them to be just sort of hacked about by amateurs. He wanted them to be performed by the best pianists. And that was something that really helped to sell the Beethoven symphonies, to make them these central works in the repertoire. Liszt, donated quite a bit of money to fund the Beethoven Monument and Beethoven Bonn in Beethoven's birth city. He was very, very much involved in creating the classical canon as we know it by making these arrangements of things. And so he was very, very sensitive, very faithful to Beethoven's originals. And the wonderful thing about these things is that I actually prefer listening to Beethoven symphonies in the piano versions when I'm, for example, out in open air with ear thingies in, or driving in a car or something like that, because you can hear everything. It's not like, orchestral music is difficult when you're in a noisy environment, because the quiet stuff, if there's dynamic range, disappears. You can't hear it. And the loud stuff blasts out of your mind. And then you've got, and everything in between. It gets very irritating, or it can be. But when you play everything on a piano, you still have dynamic range, of course, but everything is on the same level of tone. You can find a volume that's acceptable and let them go. And there's a tremendous amount of contrapuntal detail that you don't hear in Beethoven's orchestrations that you do hear in Liszt's arrangements, because of the fact that you have equality between the two hands, and between the treble with the tune and the bass lines. And Beethoven's bass lines are very, very important. I mean, one of the more interesting moments is in the first movement of the Seventh Symphony. because initially when you hear it, it's canonic, right? Bum bum ba da 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 dum ba da 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 dum bum bum ba da 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 dum, and then it gets loud, right? The horns are roaring. It's bum bum ba da bum ba da 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 dum bum bum ba da bum ba da da da. You don't hear the fact that there is still that canonic moment, that answer in the bass. Well, you hear it here. And Liszt brings it out. I mean, whether or not you hear it well or not. I mean, maybe he, adds a little sometimes just to make things clearer. But boy, are they wonderful arrangements. And these performances are stupendous. They're first class in every respect, brilliantly played, wonderfully recorded. There have been many versions since of the Liszt arrangements of the Beethoven symphonies. One of the most famous was Glenn Gould's performance of the Fifth Symphony. That was kind of a one-off, well before this came out, of course. But, it was a famous recording. It's still deservedly so, a famous recording. And, since then we've got, the complete Liszt edition, and you've got Sherbakov doing it on Naxos. They're quite good. They're also very good. So it's no longer as much of a novelty as it was when Katsaris first did these. But, oh my goodness, you really, really ought to hear them. And if you love Beethoven symphonies, you will have these versions, because it is it's one great composer's selfless, really selfless, especially at the time, really selfless commentary on the genius of another. And for all that Liszt, comes in for his share of opprobrium because of, issues of taste and whatnot, he was extremely sensitive to Beethoven's objectives in these symphonies, and the arrangements themselves are a clinic in how to do that sort of thing. So anyway, keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.